everybody, welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. So today we are talking about the 2002 American remake of the film The Ring. It starred Naomi Watts and it was directed by Gore Verbinski, and the cinematographer is Bojan Bazelli. Sorry for mispronouncing those names. The film did incredibly well when it came out. It is very, very close to the Japanese version of the film. So I'm not going to talk a lot about The Ring in general. I'm going to stick really specifically to choices that were made in this version and differences that happen between the Japanese version and the American version. If you want more general stuff about The Ring and its influence and all of that, there is, of course, the deep dive into the Japanese version of the film a couple days back. And my brother also read the book that it's based on, and he did a quick review of the book that we put up yesterday, so you can look back to that. And then tomorrow, we'll put up his deep dive into the book. And that'll pretty much finish up Ring Week for us, I believe. So there's a lot of Ring content to look into. So this is really specifically just going to be about the American film. The cinematography in this film is incredible. It's this kind of gray-green tone that layers over everything. It's got a really foreboding kind of look. Also, every shot, I swear, every scene has a ring in it somewhere, right? Whether you're looking at a manhole cover or a coffee mug that's been sitting on a newspaper that leaves a wet ring on the paper. Really brilliant, interesting, artistic choices, both from the director and from the cinematographer. This film really ups the artistic approach to The Ring, which I really appreciated. The director, he went on to do the Pirates of the Caribbean, right? I'm not a huge fan of those movies. I don't hate them or anything. They're just fine. From what I can tell from The Ring, he's really, really good. Like I said, the artistic choices throughout this are just incredible. I'm going to go ahead and point some of them out, but I highly recommend that you see this film. I think that it's really underrated, to be honest with you. And I don't mean that it's scarier than everybody thinks or whatever, but it's just really well done. It's a beautiful movie. It's worth checking out. And of course, Naomi Watts does an excellent job. So I'm kind of just going to go through my notes. As I was watching it, I was just jotting things down because we've already talked so much about The Ring. So the opening scene for the film is not as successful as the Japanese version. And the reason that I believe it's not as successful is because I believe the actresses are too old, for one. I don't buy their innocent situation that they're in, that they're just having this little fun sleepover. Also, part of the problem is the dialogue. In order to justify casting older actors or actors that seem to be more mature than the ones they had in the Japanese film, they try to push up the dialogue so that it's more adult. They have this weird conversation about how corporations are killing us basically by putting all of these weird, x-rays and things into the air, and we're absorbing them and it's slowly killing us, and the corporations don't care. This kind of weird conspiracy theory thing, which I understand that that's kind of the theme of the film, with the cursed tape and all that kind of stuff, but to make it that blatant right at the beginning, it's too much. It's honestly too much. I do not believe that this opening scene is very successful. It is, however, scarier than the Japanese version, which is really cool. They really up the scare in this. The house layout's basically the same, and the general layout of the scene is basically the same. They're talking upstairs. They realize that she's seen the video. Then the phone rings. They run downstairs. They answer. Turns out it's the mother, so everything's fine. So one of them runs off to the bathroom and she says something weird, like, maybe I wrote it down. Yeah, yeah. Ask her where she keeps the Vicodin, she says, as she's running off towards the bathroom, I guess. Because they were just trying to make them more mature, I guess. I don't know why. Um, but she goes running off towards the bathroom. And then, of course, the scares start. The television turns on. She goes in and shuts it off. And then she sees a reflection in the television. So she whips around, and of course, nothing's there. And that's not in the Japanese one. Um, and she can't find her friend. She literally calls for her and decides, oh, she must be upstairs. So she goes upstairs, and there's this huge puddle of water on the floor. There's water dripping from the doorknob. She opens the door, and of course, we get the kill move, I guess, from the ghost. It's pretty scary. It's pretty fun. I think that upping the scare is a good idea. And I do want to say, remaking something that's already good is easier than making something that's good. I do believe that, especially for an American audience, the American version of this film is better. But I don't want to to diminish what the Japanese crew did to create The Ring. I mean, it's incredible. To take something that good and just up the stakes a little bit is easy, right? Just because it's a little bit better doesn't mean it's more important. It would not exist without the original Ring, period. So I do think though for an American audience it is a better watch. I should say we just recently got the box set. I know Chris showed it in the last video. It's got two or three films in it. I think three different films. Yeah, it's got The Ring 2, and then Rings. It's got those three films. They're all American films. The Japanese director did make the second film in this box set, which is super cool. I don't think Ring 2 and Rings are as good as The Ring. I think it's very, very hard to top that. It also has a very short film called Rings. It's weird that they have the same name. Um, and that goes between the first movie and the second movie. That kind of helps set up the second movie. They do a weird thing in Rings. In all of the Ring films and in the book, once you watch the tape, you experience everything that Sadako went through. Or Samara, if you're watching the American one. No matter when you make a copy of the tape, you experience everything. But they do an interesting thing in Rings, which is they have the people who watch the tape try to last as long as they can before they make a copy, which suggests that once you make a copy, you're just done. You know, it happened, it's over, that's it. Which I don't think is the wisest choice. I find that very interesting. We're, of course, not going to go into deep dives of the other films or anything, but I just thought I'd bring that up. That's a weird, interesting change that I feel like they made. All right, so then we meet Rachel, and Rachel is the lead in the film, of course, and she is incredibly strong. She's a very powerful reporter. She is constantly saying terrible things about her boss, and he tries to fire her, but he can't fire her because she's too good at her job. Like she is an alpha reporter, I guess is the way to put it, right? She's really good at her job. But that takes a bunch of her time. So of course her child is being neglected. Not in a you don't get enough food or you're not getting educated or anything like that, but neglected in kind of an emotional sense. He's just being left alone a lot because she is so busy and because her husband, has left. So it's a one parent household, which is always tough, of course. But I really appreciate that they made her so strong and direct. It's very cool. They do a really neat job of pointing out how important Katie was. Katie is the young woman who dies in the beginning of the movie. And I think it's Rachel's niece. I think they're related, but she takes care of Aiden. She takes care of the young boy. And they really clarify that. They really drive home that now Rachel needs to find a new babysitter, basically. She needs to find somebody else to take care of Aiden because she is not there. And I really appreciate that strong tie in because in the Japanese version, they did a weird thing where the lead character was already doing a story about the cursed video, and then all these kids die, including her niece, and she needs to look into it more, right? But she was already doing it, which is a really weird coincidence. But in the American version, Rachel is not looking into cursed video at all. She doesn't know anything about that. All she knows is that her niece died, and her sister really wants her to figure out how she died because she just has a heart attack, which is very, very uncommon in young people. You know, if they have a previous heart condition, then of course you could expect it. But with no previous heart trouble at all, for them to just have a heart attack doesn't make any sense. So once we realize how close she is to Katie, then she starts snooping around a little bit, talking to Katie's friends and stuff, and she realizes that Katie went on a camping trip with some other people, and they all died at the exact same time in the exact same way. And that's what drives us to the tape, which is a better approach, I think, than having her already looking into a tape. I think that was really a good, solid choice. I appreciated that. So, probably the first big scare, you get creepy stuff, of course, but the first big scare is the reveal of the dead body, of Katie's body. And even in the Japanese one, it's scary when she opens the closet and you see the dead body. But in the American version, they really upped it. Number one, the makeup is 100 times better all through the American version. With Samara coming out of the well, I mean, she looks insane, right? Because she's been underwater for 20 years or whatever it is. You know what I mean? She looks crazy with all the makeup and everything. It looks amazing. And the same thing with the victims. You know, they do this weird marbling on the skin and their mouth is all open. And when they reveal Katie's body, she opens the closet and Katie's head dips down, like it just falls. So she's literally moving in the shot. It's terrifying. It's excellent. Really, really well done. And of course, it's scary in the Japanese one, but they really upped it here, which I really appreciate. Once again, they really try to make the kids more mature in this film, and I'm not sure why they're trying to do that. In the Japanese film, when she goes out to talk to her niece's friends to find out how she died, she's just a mom to them. She says, "Tell me what happened right now." And they're all like, okay, we'll tell you. And they tell her about going up to the cabin and watching the tape, that kind of stuff. In the American version, Naomi Watts has to put on this weird character. She grabs a cigarette and she comes out and she's acting all cool and she's talking to the cool kids and she takes one of their cigarettes and lights her own cigarette, and it's a very weird choice that I really believe doesn't fit the narrative well. I think it kind of hurts it a tiny bit. I was talking to my brother about it, and he said it's probably a way to show how good of a reporter Rachel is. That she has the ability to become like the people that she's talking to so that she gets better answers. And I do appreciate that. That kind of makes sense to me. But at the same time, it's weird that we have the kids in the beginning being so hip as well. You know, they're so cool and so mature, and I don't know. It didn't quite work for me. I think it hurts it more than helps it. They had a really cool thing where as you progress through the days after you've watched the videotape, you'll start doing unconscious things. Like anytime you have a picture in a magazine or whatever of a face, you just scribble over it and kind of make it look like Samara, right, with the long black hair in front of their face. There's a really neat scene where Rachel is looking up something. Of course, there's an amazing microfiche scene in this ghost movie, which I just love. I don't know why, I just love those so much. But she's doing this research and she's writing things, but then you realize that she's really just scribbling, and she figures it out too. And she looks over and she's drawn hair all over a person's face, which is really cool. I think that was a really neat thing. They do a really excellent job of tying in the images from the scary movie, from the videotape. I feel like in the Japanese version, some of it is just to be scary. Now they probably have a justification for every bit of it. And if I really looked into it, I could probably maybe figure it out. But in the American version, it's laid out. Everything you see, you realize, ooh, that's from the video. As you're watching the movie, oh my gosh, that's from the video, right? The weird giant ladder, the chair, all that stuff is important in Samara's life. And I really appreciated that. It was more clear. Maybe that's a better way to put it. It was more clear in the American version. So, in this film, there are some homages, I think that's the right word, to previous horror films, which I really enjoyed. The most obvious one, of course, is Rear Window. There's that very cool scene when her husband is watching the video and she goes out on the balcony. And in the Japanese version, she just kind of looks at these tall skyscrapers, all these apartments, right? And they all seem empty, like you don't see any people at all. It's just this weird, kind of lonely, gray city. In the American version, she comes out, there's tall skyscrapers that people live in, but as she looks around, she can see everybody in their apartments talking on phones, watching televisions, all kinds of technology in their life, which ties back to the videotape, of course. But one of them is a guy in a wheelchair with a broken leg watching a car race, which of course is straight up Rear Window, right? That Formula One race, I think it's Formula One, where the car crashes and he gets this amazing photograph of it as it's flying toward him. And of course, he's there with a broken leg because he got hit by a part of a car, getting this amazing photograph, right? And then in this film, he's just there with his broken leg watching this Formula One race. It's brilliant. It's a great, great thing. I also noticed a couple others. There's probably more. I noticed 3 total. The second one that I noticed is anytime they're driving to a location, they have a helicopter following them. Now, I don't mean you see a helicopter in the film. I mean they have the camera in a helicopter and they're above the car, right? Shooting down so that you can see the car go winding through these forests and mountains and stuff. And I believe it's a direct callback to The Shining. You know, the opening of The Shining is literally that, the helicopter following the car. Yeah, so that's a neat tie-in. Also, the third tie-in's a little bit weird. First off, you've got the guy who does the magic tricks up at the cabin. I am convinced, straight up, they're just doing Norman Bates. The actor is so quirky and strange. I really feel like that's a callback to Norman Bates. Also, when she's at the cabin, and this is going to be hard to explain, this is weird. First off, because it's a deleted scene, it's not even in the movie. If you buy the box set, which I highly recommend, definitely grab it. Wait a little bit because the price will drop. Chris was saying that the Japanese version from Arrow Video, which came out a while back, I can't remember exactly when, but it's down to $40. You know, definitely pick up the box set instead of just the film. Same thing with the American one. If you wait a little bit, I think you'll be able to get it a little bit cheaper, provided they don't sell out, you know, of course. But in the deleted scenes, there's a scene where, and this is still Psycho that we're talking about, you've got the cabin, and the door is here, and you can go off to the left, and there's a railing there, or you can go off to the right, of course. So off to the left is this railing, and behind the cabin is just woods. It's not like Psycho, where you would see Norman Bates' house up on the hill. You just see the woods. But they do this thing where Rachel goes up to the front door and then goes to the left and looks around as if she's looking into the woods. But they show it from the woods, so it looks exactly like a shot from Psycho where that actress is peeking around to look up to Norman Bates' place. And I really feel like there's a big Psycho thing happening in the cabin parts, which I really enjoyed. That's one of the reasons I feel like this film is doing a lot more than just trying to scare you a little bit. You know, it's really well made. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. And if you love film, I think you're going to enjoy this. I highly recommend it. So one big improvement that they made is in the Japanese film, before she watches the video, the countdown starts for the days, and they use the date. It says September 13th. And on September 13th, she decides to go up to the cabin and ends up watching the video. Now, in the American version, they don't do the date. They just say day 1 or something like that, day 7, you know. And they don't flash it up until after she watches the video, which I think is a much stronger choice. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, how easy it is to make something better. You know, that is not much of a task as opposed to creating something in the first place. You know, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. So I don't want to downplay the importance of the Japanese film because I love it. I think it's wonderful. So of course you've got the great scene where the kid runs into his dad. It's very, very similar. The kid's walking with his umbrella. Suddenly he stops, right? They cut to him. He looks up. The dad is standing there with his umbrella. The kid looks back down and goes around him. But they do a very cool thing, which is the entire scene takes place over a manhole, right? So there's this big ring right in the middle, which is just smart, right? They're just taking the time to go the extra step, which I really, really liked. Now, they didn't do the scene where he's sitting on the bench writing and the person walks up to him. And I really love that scene. They do a different thing where he's in a shop and there's a surveillance camera on him with a monitor, so he can see himself on the surveillance camera, and his face is contorted. Right? So it serves the same purpose. We realize as he realizes that it's all true. And that's very cool. I just sort of missed the creepiness of that person walking up to him and him not being able to look up. And it would have been so amazing in the American film. And maybe this is why they didn't do it. I'm not sure, but it would have been so amazing because Samara's makeup is so extensive compared to Sadako's, right? That if Samara walked up to him with bare feet and all that marbling on her skin and all that stuff, it would have been really crazy, as opposed to Samara, who just has the clean white dress and the slightly scuffed up shoes. You know, it would have been a whole different thing. I think it would have been very interesting to see. One thing I did notice is they do rush a little bit through the American version. The American version doesn't take its time as much as the Japanese version does. I think the editor was very interested in keeping it tight and fast. So sometimes I do feel that it's slightly rushed. Specifically, I'm talking about the scene where he sees his father and walks around him. They just clip through that. You know, they don't give you time to be like, ooh, wow, who is that? What's happening? Why are we watching this? You know what I mean? So it is a tiny bit rushed. I did love there's just a silly fun line. After the husband watches the video, he comes out on the balcony and she's like, "What'd you think?" And he says, "Well, it's probably scarier at night, I guess," which I think is just hysterical, right? Because he's like, "I don't think anything. I don't get it." But they did have the phone ring in this one, which I thought was very cool. They don't answer it, but the phone does ring. So I appreciate saying that it doesn't matter where you watch this, you are cursed and you will know about it. I kind of like that better than the phone only ringing at the cabin. They use the tree to draw them back to the cabin, not the fact that the phone doesn't ring. And I think the tree is a little bit clearer. You know, I'm not positive how Rachel puts it together, but as an audience member, seeing that tree and seeing everything turn red and the leaves shimmering, they really emphasize that tree so that when we see it at the end, we're like, oh my gosh, it's the tree, which subconsciously kind of makes us feel good about the fact that Rachel figures it out as well. Whether she would have or not, I'm not sure, but we certainly do, which is very cool. They do a neat thing in this film, which is they talk about how they can't tell how the tape was recorded. There's no indication of whether it came off a camera or did it come off of a VCR. Is it a copy? Is it the original? There's no way to tell, which is not possible. So I really appreciate that they, right from the beginning, they're like, this tape is impossible. And that's neat. That's a neat thing that they don't point out in the Japanese one. I really appreciated that. She sees the ladder as she comes out, right? There's that tall ladder. And it could just be a coincidence, but I liked it. It's neat because it just keeps the creep going, especially because later in the film we see the actual ladder, which is very, very cool. They go to the psych ward, which I really loved. They don't go to the psych ward in the Japanese version. They just say she's completely insane. She can't be around TVs. Well, in this one, they say the same thing, but Rachel actually goes there to talk to her. And she doesn't learn anything, but the person that she's talking to knows that she's watched the tape and knows how many days she has left, which is super creepy and fun. Very cool. Now, okay, so there's some cameos in this film. I don't know the actors. They're not famous as far as I know, but there are 3 or 4 cameos that are just incredible. The first one is a person I'll call the tracking lady. Rachel goes to a place where they have a machine, some kind of video production place, where they have a machine where they can really tweak the tracking to see images all the way out to the edges. They can really stretch and pull that tape to try to see every bit of it. And the woman that they got to play the person who's telling Rachel how it works is fantastic. She does such an amazing job and she's so memorable. Then, also, later in the film, they go to another psych ward. This is the husband. He goes to the psych ward, and there's a guy who controls the library, right? And he's so strict, and he's like, don't you even think about trying to take something out of here, right? And then he opens the case to check if the video's there, and the case is empty. And he gets super mad. It's a brilliant scene, right? That actor just shines. That's another reason I feel like this film is really excellent. I mean, having these little cameos. Of course, the Norman Bates guy does an excellent job with his creepy, weird little card trick thing, right? That's super cool. And I feel like there's another one. Of course, Samara's dad. Samara's dad is excellent in the film. He's very famous. I don't remember his name right at the moment, but he's excellent. They do a neat thing where there's a part in the videotape where there's a fly walking on a screen that is showing you an image. It's really weird looking because you're seeing all these images, which you just assume a camera did that, a camera did that, a camera did that. But then one of the images literally has a fly walking as if it's walking on your screen, which clearly shows that the camera is filming a screen with a fly walking on it. And then they take the extra step where the fly literally does come out of the video onto your screen. And it's this kind of neat scene with the tracking lady. The tracking lady comes back like, "Are you okay?" And Rachel's standing there with a fly in her fingers. Her nose is bleeding. And right as the lady walks around the corner, she lets go of the fly. So it's this really weird, crazy shot, which works incredibly well. It's very well done, very scary. And of course, they have a giant microfiche scene in this film. I love it because they just kind of go through. They start off with her looking on a computer, and she ends up in this basement climbing up this shelf to pull down this super old box of newspapers, right? It's really well done, and I really appreciate that they're sticking to the structure of a ghost story so much. And of course, they need to in The Ring, because kind of the point of The Ring is that twist that everything we expect them to do, they do, and it doesn't work. And it's brilliant. It's so scary and cool. So that's very good. There's an excellent scene. I'm not sure how Naomi Watts pulls it off, but she drinks some water, she starts choking, and then she pulls I guess it's some kind of weird electrode thing that you could stick on your body to test something. And she pulls that out of her throat, which is really gross and creepy and crazy. It's part of a nightmare that she's having. But I think she must have on purpose inhaled some of that water because she does such an amazing job of choking and her eyes are watering and then she's trying to pull this thing out. It's a really crazy scene. It's very cool, very well done. She does a good job. The nightmare culminates in her seeing Samara in the insane asylum and Samara grabbing her arm, of course, so she gets the burn marks of Samara's hand on her arm. And when she wakes up, of course, her kid is watching the video. They do a cool horse scene, which I like. Once again, they're tying aspects of the video into Rachel's life, which I appreciate. And it's weird because this thing happens to Rachel. and the chance of it happening to other people when they watch the video are very low. So it kind of makes me wonder if the video's different depending upon who watches it, which is very interesting. I thought that was really cool. But she does this weird thing where she sees a horse. She's on a boat, okay, a ferry. There's cars on it and all kinds of stuff. And there's a horse trailer and there's a horse in it. And she goes up and tries to talk to and pet the horse, which I understand, right? If you see a horse, you're going to be like, oh, here's some grass or whatever, you know. But the horse starts freaking out and she keeps trying to talk to it, which I think is kind of weird. She really pushes the horse until the horse just goes crazy, busts out, runs around, falls off the boat. It's really sad, to be honest. It's a tough scene to watch. Falls off the boat, goes underneath, gets caught in the rotor, and is torn to bits. And the blood coming out is in Rachel's video, which I kind of liked. That was a very interesting, weird twist. But I thought it was funny that she was messing with that horse so much. And of course, they do. Maybe it's a horror trope, right? They start putting a ring in their cuts. Just this really quick shock cut, where as they go from this scene to this scene, bam, there's a quick shot of a ring, you know, of the light when you're looking up from the bottom of the well, of the light around the well cover, that ring, which is scary and cool, right? To me, that's a callback to Psycho, where he does the crossfade with Norman Bates in the skull at the end. But it's a real shock cut, you know. It also kind of has a David Fincher feel, maybe Fight Club, where he's just flashing those images into shots. But I really appreciated it. It was cool. It was very cool. Also, Exorcist, right? They put those kind of little cuts in there as well. So you've got the husband looking for clues in the insane asylum. He's looking for old records, old patient records, right? And he's not sure where to go because he broke into the building, so he's sneaking around. And then the door that he needs to go through has a fly walking on it, like the fly in the video, which I thought was really cool. That was a neat way to sort of guide him to where he needed to be. It's cool that the video tells the story, but also has to guide you through the story so that you learn it and experience it yourself. It's very cool. The music in the film is not as effective as the Japanese version. I like the music in the film. I believe it's a callback to Psycho again. It's just, I think it's a cello or a viola. It's a lower string instrument that's just sawing away, you know, drilling out this sound. And I feel like that's a lot the way Psycho sounds, you know, with the re. So I think that that's kind of a callback to Psycho, but it doesn't quite have the otherworldly scariness that I think the Japanese version was able to get. But it's good. It's good. It's just not quite as good. So they added a brilliant thing where Samara, when she's alive, she's able to put images in people's brains. She makes them think things, and they're terrible, disgusting things that she's putting into people's brains. Not only that, she has the ability to put these images onto, I don't want to say paper because they're all on this weird X-ray plastic paper. So it looks like an X-ray, but she creates them. She just makes them by thinking them. They just appear. And nobody knows how she makes those pictures or how she's putting these images in people's brains. But the images can slowly drive people crazy. And they do a weird thing where Rachel watches a tape of Samara in the ward, and the doctor is asking her questions, and he says, "You don't want to hurt people, do you?" And she says, "But I do. And I'm sorry, but it won't stop." Now, that's a hard line to kind of interpret, Because at first, when he says you don't want to hurt people, when she says, but I do, she's either saying, oh, yeah, I definitely do, or she's saying, no, I don't want to hurt people, but I do hurt people. Now, she does say, and I'm sorry, which then suggests that she doesn't want to hurt people, but she accidentally does it. But then she says, but it's not going to stop. So I can't tell if she's saying she's sorry because she hurts people, or is she sorry because she's not going to stop no matter what they think, right? It's just a weird line. I've sort of settled on the idea that she doesn't want to hurt people, but she accidentally does, right? And this kind of goes back to the cosmic horror thing, although they don't do as much with the ocean. They do talk about how this couple desperately wanted a child. She could not get pregnant. They went away for a while, and when they came back, they say that they adopted Samara. But then they show a birth certificate of live birth from the mother, and it is Samara on the birth certificate. So we know that they didn't adopt the child. She gave birth to the child. But the dad says, I don't have a daughter, and she was never supposed to get pregnant. And of course, that could be interpreted a couple ways as well, right? It could just be that he's denying the fact that Samara is his because she's so scary and crazy. But it also could be kind of the Japanese version that she made a pact with a demon or whatever, and she got pregnant, you know. So I think, and I choose to think of it that way just because of the Japanese version, that there is a cosmic or horror element to this film. I like that. I want that to be true. So the father of Samara commits suicide in the movie, and it is so extreme and crazy. Like, I cannot believe the setup that he has created in order to commit suicide. But it's extreme. It's very extreme. It works, but I just wanted to point that out because it's so crazy. So, of course, Samara's room, I really love how freaky and scary that room is, that they have to go up that huge ladder. You know, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but you know, when you look off a really high place, you kind of feel weird about it, you know. When they're climbing up that huge ladder and the way they're shooting the thing and how small the room is and there's no wall, and as the husband steps over the ladder, I feel like they're only like 5 feet off the ground when they're climbing up because he is so nonchalant about getting off the ladder. And I don't think it's a mistake. The whole time you're just like, dude, be careful of the edge. You know what I mean? It's a freaky little tiny room that is so dangerous and weird. Gowron, what's going on? So that's our cat Gowron. She is feeling neglected, I guess. She's feeling a little bit sad. So I'm going to have to go find her after we finish the video. So they do this thing where, of course, the tree, the clue that they need to get back to the cabin, is underneath the wallpaper. But the husband can kind of see it where the wallpaper's been ripped, so he starts tearing off more paper. And they tear it off, and it's a really big image of the tree. So in order to take it in, they start backing up. Gowron, what is going on? So they start backing up, and they're going right for the edge. They're not looking. They're just backing up towards the edge so they can take in this tree. And it's this very kind of tense, weird moment because they get close. They get very close to the edge. It's a cool set. They did an excellent job of that room. Really well done. This is Gowron. Yeah. She's named after Star Trek, of course. And she is a crazy cat. Gowron is a very good name for her. She definitely rules this whole house, right? So they do a strange thing in the film where she needs to get pushed into the well. And how do you push her into the well? Rachel needs to get pushed in. They've dug up the well, they've moved off the top. So what they do is they have the TV basically push her in. All this water starts seeping up onto the floor, and it's driving all the nails and screws out of the board. I guess because the wood is expanding, so it's pushing those objects out. And by pushing all those objects out, it weakens the floor to the point that the floor can crash down and the TV can slide down and hit her and knock her into the well. And the whole time that this is happening, the TV has static flashing on it. It's kind of strange looking. It's a little bit kind of comedic, I think. I do believe that it fits the theme, but at the same time, I don't know if it's the strongest choice. She does need to get in the well. That has to happen. But I feel like they could have found a better way, even if it was just her saying, I need to find her. I need to find her now. I'm going down. You know what I mean? But they don't have rope. Like there's a crazy funny shot where he is trying to get some kind of rope to get her out, and he finds this fire hose, so he breaks the glass and he grabs the end of the hose and he starts running toward the well, but the fire hose isn't long enough. So when he hits the end, of course his feet kick out and he falls on his back. It's a very wacky, weird, the whole sequence is kind of strange. So I wanted to point that out because it's a bizarre choice. So, in the Japanese version, in order to show that it's continuing, we talked about how he drops off the wife and then it cuts to him working in his apartment. And you're like, what's going on? Why are we watching this? And then they flash up another date. And of course, that time the date's red, right? So it's extra scary. I felt like that was very effective. In this film, they make this really weird choice where you're still watching. They wake up in the morning and you're like, what's going on? Why are we still watching this? And they cut to the husband working. But then they cut back to Rachel and her son, and Rachel says, everything's fine. We fixed it. We helped her. And the son is like, you weren't supposed to help her. Why did you help her? Don't you know she doesn't sleep? And none of that makes any sense to me at all. I don't understand what the kid's trying to say. I don't understand why dealing with the body would be a bad thing. I understand it's not a good thing, right? It doesn't solve the problem because you have to make a copy. That's how you solve the problem. But to suggest that somehow it's a really bad thing, I don't understand. I don't understand where they're going with that. It does look creepy. It does tell you that it's not over. It serves its purpose, but once again, I'm not positive it was the strongest choice. And it's tough, right? Because, well, what's the better choice? I don't know. You know what I mean? What's a better choice than the TV sliding down and hitting her? I'm not sure. Because you want it to be supernatural. You want it to be scary. I love that she falls in the well. It's terrifying. Like they drop a rock in and you don't hear it hit the bottom. And it takes way too long. Like it's weird. Once she's in the well, you realize, oh, that's not very far at all. You know what I mean? But they set it up as being really far. Like she drops that rock, they don't hear anything. You wait and wait, nothing happens. But then suddenly you start to hear something and it's a bunch of bugs flying out. Right? And I feel like if you threw a rock in that well, the bugs would fly out almost instantly. But it's creepy. They did a good job of setting it up so that when she falls in, it's scary. So I don't know what the better choice is because you want something supernatural. And I don't know what the better choice is here either. Maybe just flashing the date up. Maybe the way the Japanese version did it is just fine. I'm not sure. But I don't feel like that was the best choice. So, her coming out of the TV, a couple things about it. Overall, I think the Japanese one is better. And for a couple reasons, I guess. Number one, they got an actress who was focused on movement. The movement that she's doing as she's coming out of the well is really incredible and strange. It's scary to watch. Not only that, but they had her go backwards. Like when you watch it, and it's very easy to see. I'm sure everybody's fully aware of this. But as you watch it, the hair comes out of the well first. Because, of course, she was moving backwards as she went down into the well. So her hair was the last thing to follow in. So the hair comes out, the hand comes out, then she comes out over, and all of the movement is it's just creepy, weird, cool movement. And then, of course, she gets right up to the screen and then falls through. And it's so scary and weird. And you've got the Japanese actor who does an amazing job backing up, and the editing's great. The whole thing is just put together so well. It's really well done. But the American version tops it in some ways. First off, the makeup, which we already kind of talked about. Samara looks very normal. Her hair's in front of her face, which is a little bit scary. And of course, once you can see through her hair and you see that weird fish eye, right? It's scary. It's weird and scary, but it's nothing compared to the makeup job that they did on the actress who played Samara in the American version. Really, really well done and very scary, but she comes out of the well and she kind of just walks, to be honest. And then she comes through the TV and you get that great shot. The American version did do a really good job. The actor's laying on the floor, and when she comes through, he tries to back up, and there's this little table next to him that has a clipboard on it. He puts his hand on the clipboard to help him kind of get up and get back, but his hand slips off, right? So you get this kind of cool, oh, I'm in trouble flailing thing, which is very cool. It really works. So that's okay. But then when she's out of the TV, she doesn't really walk at all. They just do this visual effect where she just disappears and appears closer, which is kind of scary, right? They couple it with an amazing stunt where the actor flies back out of fear and hits a shelf. And the shelf isn't against a wall. So when he hits the shelf, the whole thing falls. And it's actually on a step, so it falls down. It's a really good stunt. I mean, I can't imagine that the person didn't hurt themselves in any way doing that. But that's a scary reaction, right, to her popping forward. It's pretty tense. And he crawls away, and then she just sort of turns and kind of walks. So her movement is not that scary. I feel like the Japanese version did a better job, with the only visual effect being her coming through the TV, not the weird popping forward or having her look staticky like she's still in the television. She's literally there. So I don't think the tech stuff helped as much as the movement stuff did in the Japanese version. But it's still a very scary scene. It's very cool. Very, very cool. Very, very good. Of course, Naomi Watts does a great job of just the scream. It would be so hard. Like crying, if a director wants you to cry on cue, that's really tough. And there are people who can definitely do it, obviously. And I think that they're very successful, the ones that can honestly do it. But I think it's kind of the same with getting scared. Like Naomi Watts has to turn that chair around and see him there dead, right? And they show him, and the makeup's amazing, and his mouth's all open. And she lets out this blood-curdling scream, which is exactly what needed to be there. It's excellent. She does an excellent job. And then, first off, she creeps out of the building because she doesn't want anybody to know she was there. I'm not sure about that. And the girlfriend is just arriving. And she doesn't warn the girlfriend. She just leaves and let the girlfriend find the body and call the police and all that stuff. So that's a little bit strange, but that's how it works. So that's fine. That's how the plot goes. So she gets home, and when she comes in, her son is there, and she yells, "Go to your room now!" and just scares the crap out of this little kid who goes running off to his room. It's pretty dang funny. But they do a good job of her figuring out by herself that she needs to make a copy of the video. I really appreciated that because she destroys the video, right? And she's screaming, "What do you want from me?" Because she's trying to save her son, of course. Why isn't it fixed? And she realizes after she destroys this first video that there's a second video, and that's kind of what clues her into, oh my God, I made a copy. That's what I got to do. I got to make a copy. And I think that that's just brilliantly done. And of course, the film closes with them driving off to the grandparents' house to have them watch the video. And I assume that the grandparents are going to make a copy and show it to somebody else. All right, so that is the American version of The Ring. Once again, if you want to see more Ring stuff, we have other videos. Go and check them out. But I believe overall this film, for an American audience, tops the Japanese one. And I don't think that's saying much, once again, because it's easy to top something that's already been created. It's easy to take something and make it just a little bit better. Of course, there are things that are almost perfect now that it would be very difficult. But I don't believe the Japanese version of The Ring is perfect. It's very well done, and I adore it. But you can improve upon it, which this film, I believe, did. It's definitely worth it. I would grab both box sets. You should have all of them. Honestly, I would grab them both. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, obviously subscribe, because we make videos. We make a lot of videos. So definitely subscribe so you know when stuff is coming. And have a great day.